Hello, folks, and welcome to this presentation on why DNA and the Joss-Joyce family. In this video, you will learn about why DNA and how it has impacted the genealogical studies of the Joss-Joyce family. But first, we must ask ourselves, what exactly is Y-DNA? Simply put, Y-DNA is part of the Y chromosome that is passed down the direct male lineage of a family. Remaining largely unaltered over the hundreds of years, it is useful in locating the geographical origins of a male lineage. And for historians and genealogists, it is particularly useful in uncovering the true history of a surname. This concept of a Y DNA inheritance can be seen by this graph. It simply begins with one male, in this case a Joss-Joyce male, who passes his Y-DNA signature to his son, which then is passed down to the next heir in the lineage, and so forth over the years. However, since females are not born with a Y chromosome, they cannot inherit Y DNA. There are three main Joss-Joyce family branches that have confirmed Scottish Y DNA origins. The first one is Thomas Joss, born 1609, who helped father the Josses of Banffshire. The next one is a William Joss, who is a forebearer of the Josses of Aberdeenshire. And there is George Nelson Guthrie, who also shares this same Joss-Joyce lineage, and he settled in New York about 1750. As part of this Y DNA inheritance for all three major branches, each one has inherited specific SNPs. SNPs are defined as single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are permanent changes in the Y-DNA of a male that are passed down the said male lineage. In about every 3 or 4 generations, a new SNP is born in a male line. To further illustrate this point, I will I will now discuss the original Joss Joyce SNP, RY7729. A family tree a DNA has estimated that it was born in the Joss Joyce male about the year 1350 CE. This Joss Joyce male, in all likelihood, he lived around the borders of Scotland, and all three major branches of the Joss Joyce family are born with this SNP, including George Nelson Guthrie's line. As this graph illustrates, RY7729 is the original SNP that denotes the origins of the family, and it is passed down to Thomas Joss, who started the Josses of Banffshire. It is passed down to the family of William Joss, who started the Josses of Aberdeenshire, and of course to George Nelson Guthrie's line, who settled in New York. About 4 generations after the birth of RY7729, a new SNP was born in the Joss Joyce family, RFT79188. FTDNA has estimated it was born in a Joss Joyce male about the year 1506 CE, and it was likely in the area of Aberdeenshire, Scotland. And this is the first SNP that has Joss origins as far as the surname goes. This is because only a Thomas Joss and a William Joss and their direct male descendants have inherited this SNP. So as this chart illustrates, RFT79188 is when the surname was born about, and Thomas Joss and his family have inherited this SNP, and his lineage consists of the Josses of Banffshire and the Joyces of Northern Ireland, and the other Joss lineage to inherit the SNP is through a William Joss, who is the founder of the Josses of Aberdeenshire, Scotland. A couple of generations after this, a new SNP was born, RY11201, and specifically, it was highly probable that it was born with Thomas Joss, born 1609, death 1665, of Banffshire. And because of this, only his direct male heirs and Banffshire and in Northern Ireland and beyond are born with RY11201. As this chart illustrates, Thomas Joss was born with two SNPs. The previous one, RFT 79188, which he inherited from his forebears, and his own SNP that he was born with, RY11201. These SNPs were passed down to one of his sons, William Joss, born 1632, who then passed it down to Thomas Joss, born 1683. And it is through him that the Joyce family of County Down inherited both those SNPs. Yet another son of Thomas Joss, James Joss, born 1643, he also inherited these same SNPs. And his son, William Joyce, who settled in County Down, Ireland, he was born with his own SNP, RY43252, of which he passed all three of those SNPs down to the Joyces of Ballydona, County Armagh. However, his other son, Alexander Joss, born 1682, he was not born with his own SNP, and he is the founder of the Joss family of Burnside, Banffshire. So now let's cover more recent SNPs, which are more identifiable with more recent Joyce ancestors. The first, one of these is RFTB 42619, which was first born with Alexander Joyce of Guilford County, North Carolina. And this particular SNP has been passed down to his direct male heirs that resided in Joyce County, North Carolina. A cousin of Alexander Joyce also inherited his own SNP, RFTB 53897, and this SNP was born with Samuel Joyce, who was born circa 1750. Today, all his direct male descendants in County Down and Canterbury, New Zealand, have inherited this mutation. More distantly related to the previous two Joyce ancestors is William Joyce, born 1663, who was born with the first one to be born with RY43252. And today, all his direct male descendants in Kanya Arma have inherited this particular SNP. George Joyce, born 1727, death 1769, likewise inherited RY43252, but he also was born with his own SNP as well, RFTB 34424. And and today all his male heirs in Canada and in County Armagh have inherited this particular mutation. Another close relative of George Joyce, born 1727, death 1789, was yet another George Joyce. Born in 1767, he died in 1807 in Adams County, Pennsylvania. And he passed on RFTA 92314 to his male heirs in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So, how do we know all of this? To be more specific, how do we know these very specific SNPs were born with these very distant Joss Joyce ancestors? These conclusions are a result of 10 years of research to present done by the Joss Joyce Y DNA matches who compared the Y DNA evidence against traditional documentation, after which they created a family tree incorporating both forms of evidence and then tested it to see if both the genetic evidence and traditional supported each other. After seeing that they did, they have had to update these conclusions occasionally over the past 10 years as new evidence has surfaced. But even then, the conclusions remain the same. So, in conclusion, what can we gather from all the evidence in this presentation? By comparing and contrasting both forms of evidence, both Y-DNA and traditional, one can see that the Joss and Joyce family do indeed share a common ancestry back to Scotland. And this is only because of the 10 years of research done by the Joss Joyce Y-DNA matches, of which, if they had not done this, the Joss Joyce family would still be disconnected from each other.